After a year of building and refining Magnolia County, it's time to pause the story and take a step back. Let's think about how we can make this build even better by tapping into the collective creativity of the community. To that end, about a month ago, I posted on the community tab asking for your input. What changes would you like to see in Magnolia County? And after carefully going through all of your suggestions, I've compiled what I believe are the most important updates that we should make, based entirely on your feedback. And the timing couldn't be better. We've got a ton of new assets to work with, which will help improve functionality, enhance realism, and take the build to the next level. And if you're as excited as I am to call a few mulligans, hit the like button. And if you're just looking forward to building out this neighborhood, hit the like button for that too. We might just do it in the next episode. Or leave an emoji representing your favorite holiday for the sake of engagement. But before we dive in, this video is sponsored by me and my website, cityplannerplays.com. If you're looking for a great holiday gift, it's packed with awesome stuff. Like this incredibly sought respected topography sweatshirt, these awesome coffee and tea mugs, beer glasses that are perfect for sipping a brew while you're building, or even a framed Verde Beach Transit Authority map. And new Laguna Beach merch should be dropping any day now. But wait, there's more. If you've been looking for my current mods list for Magnolia County, it's on there too. Just click on current mods list to find all the mods I'm using and links to them on Paradox Mods. And if you're a content creator, you'll find links to stream and download master plan music. This is the music that I've had commissioned for my videos, and I'm sharing it with anyone that wants to use it 100% free. Best of all, it's DMCA safe. Just be sure to credit master plan music in your video or stream description on YouTube, and on Twitch, you're good to go. You don't have to do anything at all. So head over to cityplannerplays.com to check it all out. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. Hello and welcome back to Magnolia County. We're gonna kick things off with a fairly simple mulligan. This one comes from Gabriel QBM, who recommends that we come back over to Governor's Hill and replace this road that goes along the beach. And that's because we have a 90-degree parking stall here, which would be very difficult to get in and out of, and it wouldn't be very safe. Now, interestingly, we already have a 45-degree angled parking stall road, and we use it over in Bend. So all I'm gonna do is replace this road with the road that we've already created. And there we go. I think that this looks a ton better. And because we had the filler pieces, we were able to add these planter beds right here that I really think takes this place up to the next level. So great suggestion, Gabriel QBM. Thank you so much. It was a good one. For our next mulligan, we're gonna stay here in Paradise Bay and make some improvements to our tram system. This comes from Telly Tourist by way of Ludwig Hoist, who says that we really need to go back to the drawing board on our tram system. I'm breaking their German transit brain. And after reading the feedback that they provided, it makes a ton of sense. There are really two problems with the system. The first one is right here at our transfer center. We have a whole bunch of one-ways. And this might not seem like a problem, but it means that we can't have bidirectional traffic going through here, which is why we have some of our transfers occurring over here on a side street. So we are going to replace all the tracks here with bidirectional tracks so that you could go into the center in either direction. And secondly, we're going to completely rethink the routing that we have here because this doesn't make a lot of sense. So we basically have two half circles rather than a couple of loops through here. So we've got our blue route, which goes into our transfer center and then loops right here in our couplet, comes back to our transfer center, but not in it, and then goes along this road before reaching this little commercial strip right here and turning around mid-block. This route, the red route, is doing the exact same thing, and it never actually reaches our transfer center. So the way to resolve this would be just to have two routes, one that's going clockwise and the other that's going counterclockwise, and that would completely resolve all this nonsense, and we could likely reuse most of our stops. But the very first thing that we have to do is clean up all the landscaping here because we are going to add capacity here, and that's going to encroach upon all this landscaping. Now I've got to be very, very careful because if I'm not, I will inadvertently delete our stations here, which is not what I want to do. Now I'm going to upgrade this to have double tram track. And I had to make a number of changes right here and move it and ultimately redraw some of the track because it was just too close together and it was creating little holes into the upside down.
Hello, darkness. hopeless, my old friend.
Now, the final thing I want to do within the center itself is take this bus area, this bus only road, and make this bidirectional as well. This one's probably not as important to do, but I figure while we're over here doing this, we might as well. And now I'm going to modify a little bit of track on this street. You can see that we're looping around right here. We no longer need that. So now I'm going to redo these routes, and I think I'm just going to wholesale remove these. And then we're going to draw these back in, but we have an extra stop right here that we need to get rid of. And this makes me realize we actually need tracks on both sides of these platforms, and that our platforms are not going to work as they're currently constructed. Because we have all this seating, and reasonably we'd need benches that are flat, not these chairs with backs, because otherwise you'd be trapped and not able to use this completely. There's one other area that I think we need to look at, and that is right here. Yeah, we only have one track coming in, and then it goes on one side of the road. So let's go ahead and add bidirectional track right here. And then we need to clean things up along this couplet as well. And I think that that should be pretty good. We should be able to go all the way around here now. So let's create these new routes. So the one thing I want to do is just make sure, yep, we've got an issue here where we don't have enough trams. And that's because we're throwing too many vehicles at these routes. So I'm just going to turn this down. Honestly, I think 2 is probably going to be good enough, and we have to go with 3. And we'll go ahead and do the exact same thing to Route A, 3 vehicles. And now we should have plenty of vehicles for all of our routes. And look at that, it's functioning really, really well. Looks a ton better, with the exception of the lack of landscaping. So let's add a couple of trees through here. And there we go. Nothing super exciting, but we will be doing a little bit of redevelopment in this area in the future. So no need to get super elaborate with the landscaping, at least in my opinion. Editor Phil, and we've got to do something about this. This looks absolutely terrible. Now, I think that there's a couple of things going on. First and foremost, all of these extra stops that I'm about to add, or that I just added, are going to cause lots of problems for us because we won't be able to control our lane connectors. The other issue here is that we've got a super node, and I didn't even notice it while I was building this, but this right here is a super node. And the way to tell is to try to delete the road in between here, and you can't do it. And if I get rid of this and this, it's looping back around. So there's no way for me to fix this other than to completely redraw both of these. And I'll begin by drawing this road back in, and then I'll try to draw both of these and try to make sure that they're not super noding as I do it. And to do that, I'm not going to add the track until afterwards. You can see, look at that. It immediately tries to create a super node. And now that still looks messy, but I should be able to fix this with the lane connector tool. And all I want to do is make sure that all of the trams are going to be heading up this road and not looping back around. And there we go. That is looking a ton better. But we've got to add our stops, and this could create problems if we're not careful. So I'll make sure I'm moving this far enough back, and then we keep them even, and look at that. That looks outstanding. Now, the reason we don't need to have 6 stops here is I forgot that the trams can load on either side. There's doors on both sides. So because of that, it doesn't matter what way you pull into these stops, you should be able to drop off. So this is gonna work just fine. And if I try to add the other side, we end up with those loops and I can't get rid of them. Now, do know I'm doing this after the fact, so the rest of the video is going to show this looking crazy. Sorry about that, but do know that it is fixed. I do want to see ridership on this now that we've modified it, but that's going to take a couple of minutes to catch up. So in the meantime, there's one change that I want to make for me that I keep delaying, and that is the parking lots back here. And reasonably, I think that all we've got to do is remove them. We've got street parking in the front, we'll have some yards in the back, and it's going to be completely fine. And there we go. Is that perfect? Probably not, but it provides a degree of separation in between these homes and the rail track. It would shield some of the sound, and honestly, it's a lot less pavement. There's plenty of street parking, and if you're living in an area like this, you're likely going to be using a lot of transit anyway, so maybe having a personal vehicle doesn't matter all that much. We just beefed up the trams anyway, so you should be completely fine getting on those if you want to. Now, speaking of the trams, let's take a look at these. That's completely empty. That is a little bit alarming. Hopefully, it's just because they're doing such a good job of picking everybody up. And indeed, it's just working really well. We've actually got a lot of excess capacity, and because the system is laid out a lot more logically, I assume it's going to remain like this until we increase density. And honestly, I'm here for that because that's where we should be targeting density around our transit corridors, which is something that we can now do in the future. So excellent suggestion, Telsey Tourist, and thank you for bringing this to my attention, Ludwig Hoist. Much appreciated. This was an excellent series of fixes. For our next fix, we're going to remain here in Paradise Bay, but at the very edge of town near the Switch On factory, where Pi Gaming recommends that we make some changes to this interchange right here. Now, I'll be honest, when I first read this one, I thought that they were just disparaging the way that this looks because it is indeed very ugly, but they were actually making some excellent feedback about the movements right here with all the ramps coming into River Boulevard and how unsafe this would potentially be, particularly with all the truck traffic in the area. So we are going to add some roundabouts right here to try to smooth things out, make things flow a little bit more effectively, get rid of some of those traffic signals. And if we're going to do that, we've got to do so in a truck-friendly way. So I'm going to add in roundabouts that I think would work well with trucks. So the first thing we've got to do is kind of rethink this area right here. So I want to get rid of these ramps and then return the cross section right here to being a consistent section. And then I'm just going to link these two ramps together. And then we'll add our roundabout right here. Now for the roundabout, I want to go with a medium roundabout to begin with, and I want to make sure I don't have any decorations. Now in general, when you see a roundabout like this, it has no decorations because they expect that trucks may need to drive over the top of this. If you had a long load or something like that, you might just go right over the top of the roundabout really slowly. And that's why you'd have this slight ramp up right here. Not anything that would completely take your truck out or anything like that. That would allow you to go over the top. So that's why we'll do that. Now over here, I think I've got to remove, it's not going to let me add this because we have a custom intersection. So we just have to go back into traffic and return this to vanilla. And then we should be able to add our roundabout right in here. And reasonably, this is good enough. I could leave it, well, not like that. I could leave it just like this, but I think that we should probably do a couple more things to make this area a little bit better. First and foremost, you can see that we are encroaching upon the road right here. Don't know how I ended up leaving that behind. Let's use Move It to fix that. Secondly, I used the old extended road tools to make this ramp right here, this retaining wall. So I'm going to use Anarchy to fix it. And then I have this sound barrier right here that I left behind because I figured it was already there, might as well just leave it. But after giving it some thought, you wouldn't be able to see the cars coming if you were driving up this ramp. So I've just removed that to keep things a little bit safer. So now I think we can go back here and rethink this area. And this isn't something that anyone mentioned in the comments, but I was giving this some thought. And we've got two accesses to the highway that are right next to each other. So this doesn't really make a lot of sense because this one is pretty unsafe. So we can actually reclaim some right-of-way, which is something you never get to do, by doing that. So you can still get on the highway from the village of Hiddenbrook by driving on River Street, and it removes this really unsafe junction over here. But we've got to fix this up, and this should be fairly simple. And there we go. And look at how much space we've opened up right here. The one thing we might want to take a look at is this is pretty messy right here. I think that there's, you can make a reasoned argument that maybe we go up to an asymmetric right here out of town. And that's because you'd expect a lot of people to be leaving and fewer coming in. And there we go. Decided to completely redraw this road in to straighten things out. And I think it looks a ton better. So that's good enough for here. And I think it's going to work really well. The last thing I want to do is remove some traffic lights, which I think would make a ton of sense, considering like this road right here probably shouldn't have traffic lights. And while we're adding roundabouts, let's add one right here as well, going into Hiddenbrook. And then down here, a couple more lights to remove. And there we go. I think that those are some really good improvements. The one thing I want to do, I want to wait just a little while to see if we have enough capacity right here. I took off a lane right here, and I think it's probably going to work fine. But the only way that I'll really know is if I let this simulate through rush hour. So I'm going to let this go for a couple hours, and we'll see what happens. And honestly, after watching this for a few hours, things seem really good right here. So I think that we're going to be just fine. The roundabouts were the right solution. The only thing I want to do to round things out here is kind of increase the beauty of this area. Now that we have the new version of Anarchy, I should be able to clean things up, fix the landscaping a bit, and ensure that everything looks very balanced and very nice. And there we go. I think that that is looking a ton better. So a huge shout out to Pi Gaming for the suggestion. This was a good one. This whole area is a ton better because of it. And now for our final major project in Paradise Bay, we return to the hospital. And that's because there was a lot of feedback about the hospital, a lot of discontent with this. Comments like Ashes, who says that the ambulance bay of the hospital is in a really bad spot right now. It's going right through this parking lot, so that is not ideal. Neon Aviator says that there should be accessible parking here, and I completely agree with that. And there were a number of people who thought that there was way too much parking for this facility, which I think is debatable, but I completely understand the concerns. So I want to completely rethink this site because we have some new hospitals, and I really dislike this asset. It's gigantic, it seems like it's out of scale, and just reasonably, it doesn't fit a city of this size in an area like this. And now that we have some great region pack hospitals, I think we should replace it. So I'm going to get rid of basically everything in this site, but I do need to mention we are going to lose one thing, and that is our hospital helipad. You can see that it's coming right here. That's going to be gone. I can't replace it, but I'm not overly concerned. I think the region's going to be okay. So let's get rid of everything in this site. And there we go. We have a completely blank palette to work from, with the exception of this small road right here, but reasonably, I'm going to probably reuse this. So let's select the right hospital. And I've been thinking that the UK Hospital General Infirmary is probably the right one for us. Couple of reasons for that. First of all, I just love the historic look of it. And second, I think I can modify this asset if I am really careful and make it completely fit this area the way I want it to. And what I mean by that is I don't love that the parking is at the very front of this. I kind of want to pull the hospital up to the road and completely control the parking, sticking it in the rear, making it feel like it's a little bit hidden. So that's what my game plan is. I also want to see if I can reuse this accessible parking and keep that in the front. So let's go ahead and pop in a better bulldozer, and I'm going to start deleting portions of this asset. I know it looks like a mess right now, but I think I could probably pull this up to this road, and look at that. It's a thing of beauty. This thing is still working. It's operational, or at least I believe it will be. When I see an ambulance coming right here, then I will know for certain that it's working. But I feel very hopeful that nothing is blinking at me right now. So I'm going to proceed as if it is working, and I'm going to send a road up the side here. And this is really delineating the hospital campus. I'll get rid of these little stubs right here because we're going to do something special with this side. And then in the back, I want to have some parking lots. So for this, I'll just go with some of these medium parking lots. Now, a few more changes to make to this asset. I really dislike that it has these really tall lights. So I'm going to replace these with some of the shorter lights like we saw on the front of the hospital. And then we've got all of these parking signs and surfaces and stuff like that. I'm going to get rid of all of that stuff. And now I want this to be functional, and I want it to feel like it's part of a cohesive campus. So I am going to draw paths from the front to the back of this. And now this surface is now getting pulled towards this path. I've got two ways that I could deal with that. I could either move the path or slide this over slightly. I'm going to try to slide it over to make it stop doing that blobby thing. That is much better. And now I want the parking lot to interact with the path and the building itself. So for this, there's a couple of things that I want to do. First of all, I added one mod into the build. I added the surface painter, which also allows you to replace surfaces. So I'm going to grab the concrete pavement surface and replace this, hopefully making it the same one. There we go. That looks good. And now I should be able to either draw in my own path to match this or just connect the two of these. And then I'll just draw some ped connections just to make sure that this works. Same thing over here. I want to make that connection. And then lastly, I want to do the exact same thing in the front. And what I'm thinking is I want to be able to leave from the hospital, cross Prospect Street and get all the way to Dean Street, because that's where we have our bus stop. Oh no, I have made a terrible mistake. I want to delete these little segments. I was just trying to get crosswalks, but apparently by doing this with the building over the top, it won't let me, even though I don't have buildings selected here and move it. I'm going to try to just move this building and then delete these. Let's see if I can add these connections across the street. I still can only add one, so I'll just get rid of that one. And then we'll spin around the back to make sure nothing's bad here. All is good. Nothing to see here, folks. There's just one connection. And you know what? That's going to be just fine. We can live with a little bit of imperfection. Now, you might be noticing that the ambulances are despawning right here. I believe that's actually the way that this asset works. So I'm not overly concerned about that. Reasonably, I'm just concerned about the way that this looks. And this is kind of the vibe that I was going for. So I dig it. But we've got two spots that we need to contend with now. These areas where there's nothing really going on because that old hospital took up all this space. So I've got some ideas for this. The first idea is that we have some apartments right here, kind of bring in some more housing so that we'd have folks that could live where they work. So this isn't going to be the most glamorous housing, but I think we'll go with some of the UK apartments, which I think will fit really nicely in this area. Now, I want to narrow this down to the new UK apartments because I'm going to manually plop all of these. So I will narrow this down to residential buildings. I'm going to go for medium buildings because I want some 3 or 4 story buildings. And then I want to make sure that these aren't the duplexes, they are the flats. So I could just type in flat. And then these were the general vibe that I was looking for. I want these assets to have parking though. So I don't want to go for like the 2x2s or the 3x2s. I really want to go for some of the deeper assets, probably the largest ones that I can find, which appear to be these 4x4s. So I've got an idea. We're just going to have a few of these going along the front, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the sides here. And now I don't want these facing this way. I'll have parking coming internally. And that's the general layout of this area, but I've got a little bit of magic that I think is going to make this area feel really special. First and foremost, I want to delete all the hedgerows around here. And now I want to make these buildings feel like you can leave the building right here and get to the sidewalk. So for that, I'm going to grab the surface and do something like that. And then I think if I use an invisible path to connect the front of the building to the sidewalk, folks should be able to walk from the sidewalk into the building. Now, all of that said, I want to make sure that my colors are all the same for all these buildings. I want to make it feel like these were all mass produced and put together at once. So I'm going to go ahead right away before I finish all of these out, and we will use our surface tool to replace all of these. Would you look at this? We do have someone walking in there. Everything is going to plan. So now what I want to do is come up with an idea for these last 2 empty spaces that need a little bit of work. And what I'm thinking is we'll have just kind of some sort of decorative path in the center here. And there we go. That helped me realize that these buildings weren't centered as well, so I was able to fix those with Move It. And nothing all that elaborate, just a little something that'll make this area feel special. And then over here, I think I'm going to completely butcher a park and force it to fit here. This passenger park or passage park is probably gonna fit if I contort it and do some bad things to it, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. And there we go. You can tell that this is working because it has homeless people living in it already. And that's because Bye Bye Homeless is not currently in the build. So now we're gonna do a little bit of landscaping and detailing and replacement of surfaces. And this area should be nearly good to go. And there we go. And as I was doing all of that, I couldn't help but think there are two more things that I want to do. First and foremost, I want to control the colors of these buildings a little bit to make it feel like a cohesive apartment complex. So for that, I'm just going to grab this color right here, and I'm going to paste these onto the rear buildings. And then for these front buildings, I kind of want these to mirror the look of the hospital. So we're going to control the colors of these buildings a bit. And that's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. The other thing I think I want to do is control the roof color and make this darker. It's kind of what I'd expect to see in this part of the country. So I think that is probably what I'm looking for all of these. And then I think I'll steal this roof color and paste it onto all of these as well. Oh, that's looking so much better. But I'm noticing even more things. One is right here where I don't have any pavement underneath the accessible stalls, so we're definitely going to fix that. And the last thing I really wanted to do was replace the gas station. And for this, I want to use one of the new ploppable petrol stations. So I'm just going to use this one that we have here, the largest one. And this was always what my vision was for this area. Have a gas station where someone could grab a bite to eat and, you know, fuel up on the way home. And now the last thing, the last thing in this area. Actually, there's two things. Two more things. But one of the last things is lighting. So we're gonna make it nighttime. And I think this light pole commercial is what I really want for this area. And that with lighting, the goal is to make sure that they overlap everywhere. And boy, oh boy, this looks a ton better. Now there's one more thing we've got to do, and that's make sure that transit is still in the right spot here, because I'm a little bit concerned about where the bus stop is. And indeed, it's over here now. So I'm just going to add a shelter right in front of this. It is a hospital after all. And then I'm going to add a mid-block crossing. And then we've moved our routes right there. And now if you were a worker at the hospital, it'd be really easy to get on the bus, get in and out of this facility. It would be absolutely fantastic. But there is one really last thing that we've got to do, and that is name the hospital, I guess, and name the neighborhood. And we've got a couple of great suggestions. For the neighborhood, Grayson B. West suggests that we name this quarry park after the quarry that used to be here. And I absolutely love that. And for the hospital, Jarl Breadmaker recommends Paradise General Hospital with the nickname of the Chuckles House. And I love that one too. And there we go. And all of the suggestions for this area were, in my opinion, just absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much for this. I think this fits so much better. And I feel inspired to build in this area now that we've rectified and kind of corrected things right over here. Speaking of quarries, one of the things that we removed from this area was a quarry. And LaShawn Jefferson made an astute observation. The county needs a replacement quarry. Aggregate is now extremely expensive. Construction costs have tripled, and reasonably, that could happen. One of the reasons you want aggregate so close by is because it's so heavy. So we would want to have something serving this community, otherwise it would be very expensive to build over here. So with that in mind, I think that we're gonna add a new aggregate mine right over here. But that presents a couple of challenges. First and foremost, we have no connection over to Paradise Bay, so we've got to come up with some way to link this county road over to the rest of Paradise Bay. And I've given this a lot of thought, and I've come up with a solution that I'm guessing most of you aren't going to like. So what I'm thinking is we are going to run a road basically underneath this rail facility and link up to this road right here into the airport. Not ideal, but this provides a direct connection into Paradise Bay. And if we do it right, it should be fairly safe. So we're gonna go right underneath this. So I'm going to drop this down and keep this ground level. Now, before we do anything else, I need to figure out where this is going to link up, or at least how we get over here. And I need to get away from this junction. We'll have to merge further up. So I think heading along with the contour lines is probably our best bet. And then we hit it up with a little bit of a smoothie right there, and things are looking so good. Now, right here, we've got to control this a little bit. I don't think we want full access through here. There's no reason to need to make a left-hand turn from this road towards the airport, so we'll prevent that. All you're trying to do is come from Paradise Bay and go back to the mine. And then right here, I'm going to add another lane and then use traffic to control this one so you can't make a right into here. And there we go. I think that is more in line with what we need. So now just a little bit of cleanup. We'll back the trees away from the road. So now for our aggregate mine, we're going to basically eliminate this road, and this entire area right here will be our aggregate mine. And there we go. I tried to hide this thing behind a fairly dense row of trees on all sides. And as we fill this area in, I think it's going to make more sense. But for now, I like that it's done two things. First of all, it's de-cul-de-saced our farming area. So now, even though you're driving through the airport to leave, you could do it if you wanted to. And it gives us that aggregate really close to Paradise Bay, which is going to support the growth in that area, which is wonderful. So thank you so much for the idea, LaShawn. It was a very good one. And now we finally make our way over to Bend, where we have a suggestion from I'm Jashing You. We need a boat launch here in Bend. We've got this marina, and there's no way to actually bring a boat into the water. I completely forgot about that. So what I'm thinking is we'll likely do that right over here. We'll clear some rocks, extend the road into the water, and that'll be where the boat launch is. But I'm Jashing You also suggests that this could be a place where people go fishing, so I think we'll add a little bit of a pier and maybe some connections into the pedestrian path, and maybe even add some more parking back here and make this a really nice place to launch your boat, go fishing, check out the water, or just, park if that's what you're looking to do. So the first thing I want to do is remove some of these rocks. So I'm going to extend Kent Lane to the water. And now one thing you might be thinking about, or maybe you didn't think about, is if I extend this into the water, we end up with a quay wall, which is not what we want, or a bridge. So I'm going to just bring this right here and then use Move It to pull this into the water and then drop it down. Boom, perfect boat launch. So now I need the pier, and I'm just going to grab this pedestrian facility right here and extend it alongside this. Now I want to connect this up with this tier up here because we are going to have a separate level of parking. And I also want people from up here, if they want to use this facility, to be able to do it by parking up here and then coming down here. And now I want some parking. And I think I'm just going to mirror what we've already done over here. So I'll just snag this and paste it right here. But similar to what we've done over here, I think that we've got to grab these little spacer pieces. And as I look at this, I can't help but think I could probably fix this as well. So to do that, just add nodes there, shrink this up, looking better. And now I want to fix the riprap that I have right here. And for that, I want to make sure that I'm using the randomly rotating boulder. And then lastly, I think that we'll add just a little bit more landscaping around here. And I think that we're in a pretty good spot. That is looking pretty good. Thank you so much for the idea. I am jashing you and everyone else that submitted this one. This is one of the more common things that I saw, and it was a great idea. It looks a ton better. The next one, we're going to remain in Bend, and it's a fairly general comment, but Casnadian says, I would like a rework of Bend with the new assets because it's the oldest part of the county and so much new stuff has been added to the game. I agree. I don't think we're going to take 100% of it on, but what I'm thinking is basically this area right here, we're going to take all of this on. But first things first, I am going to pause it momentarily because we're going to need to de-zone everything. And boy, oh boy, that was as terrifying as it was exhilarating. So what I'm thinking that we're gonna do here is go mostly single family, with the exception of a couple areas where we have duplexes. So I want duplexes near the high school and duplexes along Riverbend. Although we have no housing fronting it, any lots that are fairly close to it will have as duplexes. Everything else will be single family homes, and we're gonna use all of our new UK assets. So the first thing I want to place is going to be our high school, because that's really going to change the way that this area is shaped. And I think I want that right up against Washington Street, because again, that was the name of the high school, Washington High School. So I'm going to get rid of a couple of these tennis courts. And we'll place that right about there, which will cause us to relocate our soccer field. Now, one of the interesting things about this asset is that it doesn't have a football field. And for an American school, you better believe we're going to add one. And then I'm going to send a road straight through the campus. And, you know, having worked on a facility like this, I know that there's one thing that schools really don't like, at least modern schools. They don't like when people can drive through them. And there are reasons why that might be a bad thing. There are reasons why that might not be a bad thing. But for the case of this, I think we'll just keep it steeped in realism. And we'll go with a parking lot road through here. Now I'm going to turn around these facilities to face Poplar Street right here. And then we'll use our complex curve to link this up with this existing road. And now we need some parking for the football field, and I don't want it to be something outrageous like we had before. So we'll go with something like this, and I am wondering if I can clean this up a little bit. We've got this loop around road, which I don't honestly really want there. And we can do something like this where we latch onto the side, bring it down, and that is perfect. Now, pedestrian facilities will really finish this area off. And now, as I look at this, I can't help but think that Aspen Street could be a pedestrian street. So I'll replace this with our no cars pedestrian street. I don't know that these facilities are going to love that. We're just going to need to keep an eye on it. Yeah, it's immediately unhappy. So I guess it did not love that, but I think that we can fix this by finding the invisible parking on the asset and just removing it. And that should fix everything. Same thing over here. And honestly, I like this a ton more already. I do feel like we need some access. There's no access actually into this facility from the parking lot. So we need to provide pedestrian access from the parking lot into this facility. And we'll do that with a path right here. And now I think that this campus is mostly done. I just want to remove some of the landscaping through here, and then we'll get to zoning. First things first, we've got to do a bit of grading, because I can see that we've got some lumpies and bumpies. In fact, It's kind of hard to see what happened here, but it looks like for some reason we're dipping down. So we'll clean things up like that. And now let's add our duplexes first. Again, these are our medium density semi-detached housing, and we have a fairly strong demand for that. And that's a good start, but I think we could do even more. So next, I'm thinking before we add any single family homes, let's add an elementary school. This area is really starved for one. And I'm gonna go with this UK suburban primary school, but I wanna see the size. My idea was to place it over here. It's not gonna fit. So why don't we place it over here instead? And then I'm going to remove the hedgerow because I just want it to feel like this entire area is elementary school. And I'm gonna add the upgrades right away because I know that we're gonna fill this place up. And next, before we add any single family homes again, I want to add in some medium density. So this time I'm gonna go with the UK medium density. And I'm gonna try to control these so that we get parking in front of these buildings. Actually, wait, no, we'll skip it. We'll go with some of the 2x5s, or maybe they're 2x4s. There we go. Yeah, 2x4s. These will feel like apartments. And I think that that is more along the lines of what I was hoping to see in this area. Something a little bit shorter. And now I want to cross the road and add some more of these medium density units. I don't know that we'll go with the exact same ones, but kind of flanking this area where we have a whole bunch of office, it would make sense to have some more density. And I generally like what we've spawned here, though I'm not certain about this one. So I'm going to play whack-a-mole, or maybe I'll just play select-a-mole. Though I'm going to unlock this because I don't necessarily want to keep this level 1 building, and that should be good. Now I do feel like we've got to transition away from this medium density towards some duplexes. And then even though we added an elementary school right across the street, I think we're going to add another one over here. We have a huge deficit in our elementary school capacity, and reasonably that's one of the next things that we're going to handle. But we have an opportunity right here to handle it organically. And there we go. So now there is an elementary school on either side. So with all of that in place, I think that we're ready to fill the rest in with a whole bunch of low density residential. The thing to keep in mind with these though, is I wanted them to be at least 5 units deep so that we get the maximum diversity of our assets. Now we've got kind of an interesting situation right here. I'm realizing I added these circles right here, and we no longer need these because we can just have a roundabout. So I'm going to replace those with a proper roundabout. And my goodness, that was a very big job, but I'm really happy with the way that this is turning out. I think there's a couple more things to do though. First of all, I want to add a park right here. I think I'm going to go with a dog park. It seems like it would be a good fit in this part of the community and people would enjoy that. I also want to sprinkle in a number of small playgrounds. So we'll add one of those over here and in a couple of other spots throughout the neighborhood. Now there are 3 more things that I want to do. I want to do a little bit of post grading. I want to add some landscaping, and I want to add some of Sully's surfaces so that if it snows, we end up with snow in this area. And holy cow, that was a ton of work, but I absolutely love the way that this has turned out. There's only one thing that I think I would probably change, and that I'm probably going to, and that is the roof color. It's going to be a big job, but I think recoloring the roofs to make the ones that are at least red look black is going to make this feel a lot more Midwestern. And my goodness, this looks so much better. This is such an improvement over what we had. Canadian, this is awesome. I'm super happy about this. Thank you so much for the suggestion. And the last mulligan I want to take today deals with this building right here, an elementary school. I want to make sure that we have overhead in our elementary capacity. And we're so close now after those last couple that we built. So I'm thinking that I'm going to replace this elementary school and another one here in Paradise Bay with some of our new suburban elementary schools. And my thought is that after replacing these, we should have about 1,000 overhead, which is going to be the first time in I don't know how many episodes that we actually have a bit. So I will eliminate this and I'll replace it with this one. And then I replace some of the surfaces while I'm over here. And I'm going to upgrade this right away, because we've got the extra money and I know that we're going to need the capacity soon enough. The other elementary school is right here. And interestingly, this one has no upgrades, so it's the perfect candidate to replace. And there we go. So now with those two elementary schools, we have about 1,000 excess capacity. That is fantastic. Finally, honestly, I feel incredibly relieved. I think that's also going to help us eventually get our commercial demand back. That and lowering taxes. So while I'm thinking about it, we'll lower our commercial taxes a bit. Hopefully that helps us get some of our demand back for commercial. And with all of those mulligans complete, there's only one more thing left to do. That's take inventory of what we've done with a brief city tour. this has been a long and meandering episode, but I have truly enjoyed it. I know there wasn't much of a story behind what we did today, but I think that the changes that we've made today have left me in a place where I feel incredibly inspired to continue building. And sometimes I think it's really important to recalibrate, go back to the drawing board, and not be afraid to redo your work, because sometimes that sort of redoing of your work can be what inspires you to keep building. And with that, I think that we're going to leave it here. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. And I really want to thank you for your time today, and I want to thank you for your contributions. I couldn't have put this episode together without all of the thoughtful feedback that was provided in the community tab and in the last few episodes. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your time today. It's a privilege to be able to bring these episodes to you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.